How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final genocide. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final
Hey everyone, we're back. I hope you enjoyed the stream with Adam earlier. I really did. I like him an awful lot, and I would like to keep him coming back to the channel because I appreciate his insight. But now we are switching gears and we're moving into spy stream, and we are doing a public spy stream. You know, there's a ton of leftist organizing that's going to be going on over the next couple months. So we're going to be doing a lot of spy streams. And I just need everyone to be flexible about that because I really feel like we're some of the few people on the internet that are actually documenting how the left are organizing. And I know sometimes the more progressive stuff is boring, but it gives us good information. It prepares us for what's coming next, and we can see what's trickling down into the mainstream. Anyway, tonight we're going to be watching a webinar hosted by the Interfaith Alliance, which is run by Christians, but seems to have other people in it as well. And it's called The Fateful Fight, Your Tools for Countering Authoritarianism. And it is a webinar that is going to, it says, what tools do faith communities have to counter authoritarianism? Learn from what researchers have found to be the most effective. And so we're basically getting a toolkit for how we can counter authoritarianism in the era of Trump. And it's going to be great. And the webinar is going to go on for about an hour. It is starting in about 4 minutes. I will pull it up in a second here. I do just want to remind people, if you want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, because I am 100% funded by people just like you who, for some reason, think the work we do on the internet documenting the far left is rather important, please head over to my Substack. That is Karlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com, and you can sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. You can also send in a super chat on the spy stream. Because this is a live presentation, I will not be answering super chats during the live presentation, but I will honor them afterwards for sure, and I do appreciate it. But you guys fund the work I'm doing. And guess what? At 9 p.m. tonight, or after the spy stream ends, we are gathering in my supporter Discord to watch Escape from Los Angeles. It's MacBee's movie night in the supporter Discord. I will be sending out a link to join the supporter Discord to everyone who is a supporter on my Substack in the chat. Okay, so you have to go to the chat section. You can open it on your phone or you can open it online, whichever. And when you are a supporter, you will get a message that looks a little bit like this. It's going to say, it's not going to say supporters only, but this will be the link to the Discord. I'm going to send that out during the call. So if you guys want to come and join us, if you want to sign up on the Discord and then come and join us for movie night or whatever, you can totally do that. All right, let me get the link up. We do like our MacBee movie nights on Mondays too. MacBee does a great job. He shows some cult classics. And I love Escape from LA. I know it's cheesy, but I love it. Okay, the webinar is pulled up. It'll be starting soon. So make sure, and also that's available to members of my Substack or my locals. I will post the link. I posted the link on the Discord on the locals yesterday. I can post it again there if anyone else wants it. But make sure, if you guys are a supporter of my work on Substack, make sure you get in the Discord. We do movie nights on Sunday nights and on Monday nights. We watched Mrs. Doubtfire last night. I was a little skeptical about the Mrs. Doubtfire movie, but I have to admit it was a classic. I did enjoy it. I've seen it before. Obviously, I think most people have. But movie night last night was great with Jennifer. We've got The Birdcage coming up this weekend. Mac B always does great cult classics on Monday nights. And I'm, again, he showed Escape from New York about a month ago, maybe a couple months ago. And I'm really looking forward to Escape from LA because that was actually the first of those movies I saw, I think, like many people. So that'll be fun. We are still waiting for the live presentation. As a reminder, guys, this is live, so there might be technical difficulties on their end. There might be technical difficulties on my end. They might realize we're streaming them and stop the webinar in the middle of it. This is why I usually do spy streams as supporter-only spy streams, because sometimes they figure out we're streaming it and they stop the webinar in the middle of the stream just to prevent us from streaming it. You guys can make all suggestions to MacB if you want him to show a certain movie. Or anyone in the Discord can show a movie. Like, it doesn't have to be Jennifer or MacB. Like, the reason Jennifer and MacB host movie night is because they wanted to and they just started doing it. So if you want to host a movie night, even if it's just a one-off movie night, Trendolin, you could host your own movie night. You don't have to wait for anyone else to do it. Ugh. I don't think this one is going to catch us and kick us out, though, because typically organizations like this don't actually care if I stream their stuff, but who knows? We will find out. Anything can happen on Spy Stream. No, we cannot listen to the Penguin song as we wait. That's not... It should be up at any second, guys. We should be in at any second. Everyone calm down. I will not be talking during the Spy Stream because this is my recording, but I might be chatting in. Sallow Saturday. We are never... Sallow is the only movie that is permanently banned from being shown in my supporter Discord. We will not be doing Sallow Saturday. That will never happen. Heads will roll if you guys try to show that movie in my Discord. If you don't know what that movie is, don't Google it. You're going to want to Google it. We have actually watched this before. We watched The Thing last year for Halloween, I think. The Thing is a great movie. Yeah, basically every movie is fair game except Sallow. That movie will never be shown.
Press, recording in progress. In an effort to just create space for open and honest dialogue. And in that vein, I am really grateful to be with all of you tonight for this very, very critical conversation about the role of faith communities in protecting democracy and pushing back against authoritarianism. Our intent with tonight's event is to offer you all practical resources rooted in our faith traditions, faith history, and organizing principles, all of which are building off of the strategies that are outlined in the Faithful Fight Toolkit. And our hope is really that tonight's speakers will offer you tangible actions and meaningful frameworks to really help make sense of this political moment. We know that so many of you are already deeply engaged in the work to strengthen your communities and defend our democracy. And tonight, we really just want to support you all in that work. We want to equip you with more tools and more language and more clarity to keep doing this work and to just keep doing it together. As I briefly mentioned, I am here on behalf of Protect Democracy, which is a cross-partisan group working to both prevent authoritarianism and to build a strong and resilient democracy in the US. And although we are a secular organization, we also really understand and appreciate that faith communities are just uniquely positioned to lead in our fight against authoritarianism. We believe that faith communities are just trusted, deeply, deeply rooted in local life, and have really always been at the forefront of moral and political action in the US. And so that is why Protect Democracy partnered with Interfaith Alliance and the Horizons Project to create the Faithful Fight, which is a set of written toolkits designed specifically for religious leaders and communities who are asking, what can we do? Sophia is going to drop the link to these toolkits in the chat, but we think that in addition to them being informative and insightful, they also outline concrete ways for us to gather, to communicate, and to just really show up as communities of conscience. As part of a faith community myself, I also just wanted to take a moment to share a bit about why this work and this event and conversation tonight feels so urgent to me. I think that in a healthy democracy, people feel a sense of agency. They believe that their voice matters and that they have the power to help shape political and social change. But right now, I think a lot of us, and myself included, are feeling very overwhelmed. We're watching so many shifts happen, shifts to our institutions, to our norms, and even to our basic rights. And it can feel really, really hard to know where to begin. And I think that that sense of disorientation is part of what the authoritarian movement counts on. They thrive on the chaos and the confusion, and they rely on people feeling powerless. So my hope is that the speakers and the conversation tonight can help to counter that you leave tonight feeling more grounded and more equipped, that you come away with tools and strategies and stories that remind you that there is something that you can do, and there are things that your community can do, that you have a role to play in defending democracy, and it's not something that you or I have to do alone. So with that, I am honored to introduce someone who has spent her career helping people and movements understand how to challenge authoritarianism and build democracy. Maria Stephan is a globally respected scholar and a practitioner of nonviolent action and movement building, the co-lead of the Horizons Project, and one of the lead authors of the Faithful Fight Toolkits. And she will help ground us in where we are and where we can go from here. So I'll pass it off to her now.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ella, and good evening, everyone. I should say it was a pleasure partnering with Protect Democracy, and especially my friend Chris Crawford on this call to help develop the Faithful Fight Toolkit series together with some remarkable individuals who you'll be hearing from later tonight. I want to thank the Interfaith Alliance for bringing us together tonight and for all that you are doing in this moment to educate, organize, and mobilize us in so many different spaces and places. We see you in a lot of places, so thank you to the Interfaith Alliance team. Things are really hard right now, and there are many forces of darkness enveloping us. And I feel a boost of strength and hope because of the community of people on this call who are putting faith into action, championing love over hate, solidarity over disconnection, and non-cooperation with injustice over a passive acceptance of the status quo. My gratitude to all the authors of the Faithful Fight Toolkits on this call and those who are unable to join tonight. You have gifted us with practical insights about what faith communities can do at a time when all of us are needed. And we're going to be leaning into that agency tonight. These are dark times, and the authoritarian and fascist trajectory in this country now includes a reckless and unconstitutional war on Iran, which has led to attacks on civilian sites in Israel. and continued support for genocide in Gaza. We have witnessed abductions and disappearances in our streets, attacks on voting rights, the weaponization of law enforcement to punish perceived enemies, assaults on protesters and politicians standing witness, abuses of our men and women in uniform, vicious scapegoating of immigrants and members of the LGBTQ+ community, fascist salutes, book bans, and assaults on diversity, equity, and inclusion. These tactics are connected and part of an authoritarian playbook grounded in fear-based divide and rule. We know on this call that there is a long history of authoritarianism in this country, grounded in misogyny, racism, and white supremacy. We know that religious frames, symbols, texts, and messages have been used in this country and around the world to morally sanction exclusion, racial and ethnic hierarchies, and state violence and repression. At the same time, faith communities have been the driving force of many powerful movements for freedom and justice. The abolition of slavery, universal suffrage, a civil rights movement that made multiracial democracy possible, movements to advance worker rights and environmental protections have all been powered by faith communities. Scholars at the US Institute of Peace found that religion has played a prominent role in over 50% of major nonviolent campaigns globally from 1945 to 2013, including many that have successfully challenged authoritarian and fascist regimes. Faith actors have brought moral, symbolic, and organizational power to movements, plus a faith-rooted capacity for bridging divides and nonviolent resistance. This is so important because the strongest antidote to authoritarianism is broad fronts and movements that attract and sustain the participation of diverse groups in society and that engage in creative collective action and civil resistance. You may have heard about the 3.5% rule. The idea that no regime has remained in power when 3.5% of the population has engaged in active protest. But mass protests and demonstrations only take you so far. The quality of participation matters more, along with our ability to join forces with those we may fundamentally disagree with on many things, but can agree that preventing the consolidation of fascism is in our shared interest. That bridging work is something Chris will be talking about tonight. Our ability to expand the repertoire of nonviolent tactics and to move from protests and marches and rallies to organized acts of non-cooperation like boycotts, strikes, and walkouts. This is what removes tyrants' power. When key pillars of support or the enablers of authoritarianism, like businesses and economic elites, religious organizations, unions, civic groups, security forces, when those pillars stop providing money, labor, skills, and knowledge to authoritarian regimes, this is how tyranny ends. And that's why we need to organize across all different sectors and pillars of society in big tent ways. Finally, the ability of movements to maintain discipline and resilience in the face of repression is key. And this is where organizing and training and mutual aid come in, which we'll be hearing about from Shali tonight. Faith leaders and communities have many superpowers. They can leverage their moral authority to speak truth to power. Think about the hundreds of evangelical and Catholic leaders in Brazil who spoke out against President Bolsonaro's totalitarian practices, called for his impeachment, and condemned his attempted coup in 2023. Or in the US, Bishop Marion Budde speaking out against threats towards vulnerable communities. Reverend William Barber reminding us that no one can be a king unless we bow. Rabbis who have publicly criticized the administration's use of the threat of anti-Semitism to roll back protections for free speech. Imams who have mobilized action across the country against the 2.0 Muslim ban. Faith communities can use their organizing infrastructure to bring people together, to plan, to train, and to communicate with large numbers of people, something that Reverend Date will be talking about tonight. Think about how the Fellowship of Reconciliation led nonviolent resistance trainings in churches across the Philippines during the People Power campaign against Marcos in the 1980s, or how Black churches and meeting houses provided the organizational backbone for nonviolent resistance campaigns during the Civil Rights Movement. More recently, faith leaders have organized de-escalation trainings for protesters and hotlines for reporting ICE in different neighborhoods. And they've helped organize Know Your Rights training, something Tamara Upfall will be talking about. Faith communities have engaged in non-cooperation with authoritarian policies and practices, which Reverend Stephen Green will be sharing with us tonight. Think about the role of faith leaders and communities in the global boycott and divestment movement that helped dismantle racial apartheid in South Africa. Or think about how faith leaders organized the boycotts, sit-ins, strikes, marches during the Civil Rights Movement. Now they have encouraged their communities to boycott Target over the company's anti-DEI policies, which has costed the company billions. They have blockaded ICE detention facilities, organized sit-ins, and served as a buffer between protesters and police. Muslim, Jewish, Christian, and interfaith communities have provided resources, mutual aid, and sanctuary to mitigate repression, which Shally Barnes will shed light on tonight. They have organized fundraisers for bail and other economic needs of Latino and undocumented populations, and they've provided critical services when those services were cut by DOJ. They have organized vigils, processions, and pray-ins to oppose an immoral budget that would kick 16 million people off of Medicaid. On July 17th, next month, the John Lewis Day of Action, also known as Good Trouble Lives On, faith leaders will be helping us organize nationwide days of acts of good trouble across the country. Faith groups have sued DHS over executive orders that have allowed ICE to raid religious spaces. They've defended religious liberty and joined teachers and parents in filing lawsuits that oppose state mandates in places like Oklahoma, that all public schools incorporate Bible teachings into their curriculum. They have stood in solidarity with federal workers and civil servants who have been fired, and organized to defend critical government services, which Maggie Siddiqui will talk about. These are just a few of the examples of how faith communities are stepping up in this moment to resist tyranny, while calling on us to build beloved community. And now we will hear from the people leading some of these efforts, who are offering inspired and concrete ways for us to get involved. Now, to introduce them and to bring us into the skills building part of the program, I turn things over to Guthrie from Interfaith Alliance.
Thank you, Maria, for that powerful overview of the faithful fight. My name is Guthrie Graves Fitzsimmons. I'm the Vice President of Programs and Strategy at Interfaith Alliance. And I have the pleasure tonight of introducing you to 6 of the authors of the Faithful Fight Toolkit. And I'm going to invite them to join me on screen now. I will note before I introduce them that not all of the authors are present tonight. So I hope you will take the time to review the written toolkit, Advocating for Multiracial Democracy by Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, and Defending Religious Liberty by Amanda Tyler, as well as Protecting Cyber and Physical Security. And those toolkits are at the link in the chat. But now you're going to hear from each of the authors that are with us tonight. And I want you to pay special attention to each of them as they introduce themselves, because you will have the chance to pick a breakout room based on which topic you would like to go deeper into tonight. So pay attention to all of them, and you can read all of their writing, but then you will have a chance to dialogue with one of the authors directly tonight. And so we will start. I'm going to invite Shally Gupta Barnes, who is the Policy and Research Director at Kairos Center, to start us off.
Thank you so much, Guthrie, Maria, and everyone who's here this evening. This evening, I'll be talking about a new report called A Matter of Survival that we put out recently that looks closely at the role of mutual aid in organizing to meet concrete material needs. how this is an essential element of building long-term movements that can both confront the authoritarian threat that we're experiencing now, as well as Christian nationalism. And we've drawn the examples of the Underground Railroad and of the pandemic to offer a model framework that can be applied to different community and faith-based efforts right now that people are currently engaging in, including a set of principles that can be used to politicize that ongoing work of meeting basic needs towards this long-term movement. And then we also have a series of recommendations for organizers, faith leaders, community members, and philanthropy to continue to build on what is already happening so we can get to the place that we need to go.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Reverend Date M., Director of Faith Leadership at Faith in Action.
Thanks, Guthrie. My name is Date M., and in my breakout, I will be talking about how we move from a monolithic to a multidimensional understanding of faith so that we are building beloved community, which we believe will lead to a vibrant democracy, and how all of that is connected to bringing our people into a fight. So look forward to having more conversation.
Thank you, Reverend M. Next up, Tamara Upfall is the Legislative Assistant at the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism.
Thank you. So I will be discussing welcoming the stranger. In the Torah, the Hebrew word ger is used, which can be translated to mean stranger. It can also mean sojourner or convert. It's essentially someone who is different than us. And we are commanded 36 times in 36 different ways to love the stranger, to welcome the stranger, to care for the stranger as one of our own. And the text goes even further in Exodus when it says, "You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the feelings of the stranger, having yourselves been strangers in the land of Egypt." So we actually challenge the entire notion of a stranger because we're commanded to see ourselves in their shoes. And this is a central tenet of not just the Jewish faith, but is found in every major faith today. And the question is whether we choose to elevate this value in our religious communities. So over the past year, I've been working with the Jewish Reform movement in the immigration justice space, thinking about how to reclaim our moral voice as people of faith, how to organize with other faith groups around immigration justice, and how to motivate specifically the Reform Jewish movement to get involved in this work as a manifestation or part of our religious identity and practice.
Thank you. Next up is my colleague at Interfaith Alliance, Maggie Siddiqui, who serves as our Senior Fellow.
Good evening, everyone. In a democracy, government is elected and funded by the people to meet their collective needs. The government then works to guarantee freedoms, rights, and safety to all people and to provide them with the critical services they need. The Trump administration has shown that it is not interested in people's rights, safety, freedoms, or access to critical services. Over the past 5 months, it's gone so far as to try to dismantle parts of the government itself in order to rip away life-saving services and protections. In my breakout session, I'm going to share some resources on supporting civil servants and also dig most deeply into 5 specific ways that folks in religious communities can use their unique voice and position to counter authoritarianism. Hope to see you in a few minutes.
Thank you, Maggie. Next up, we will hear from Reverend Stephen Green, Chair of Faith for Black Lives. Reverend Green.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I will be leading a discussion on nonviolence and non-cooperation, highlighting the rich tradition of faith leaders engaged on the front line. Particularly, we'll be sharing from my perspective as a Black clergy person and our tradition of nonviolence and resistance that has emanated throughout the U.S. Civil Rights Movement and beyond, and looking forward to discussing ways to engage in good trouble in our breakout session.
Thank you, Reverend Green. And last but certainly not least is Chris Crawford, Senior Director of Civic Strategies at Interfaith America, a new position for Chris. And he is also a co-originator and author of the entire Faithful Fight Toolkits project in his previous role at Protect Democracy. So we are so glad to have Chris here tonight, though, representing Interfaith America.
Thank you very much, Guthrie, and thank you to everyone who is playing a part in this tonight. I am starting my third week at Interfaith America. And so be patient with me tonight. I'm pinch hitting for my boss, Mary Ellen Geis, who wrote the Bridge Building Toolkit. And in our breakout, we're going to discuss what bridge building is and a little bit of what it is not, and talk about how it can be part of building successful coalitions.
Thank you, Chris. I love someone sent in a question saying, I want to be in all of them. And I certainly do as well. These are some of the most respected leaders in their fields. And I ask that everybody be courteous to only come off mute. You will be in a Zoom meeting, and I come off mute only when prompted by the breakout leader. And also you can engage in the chat, any questions you have or reactions to questions posed by the breakout leader. And so I'm going to now put on the screen the breakout sessions, and I will recap them for you as soon as they come up on the
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. They seem to have put me in some sort of room, but I don't know what's going on. So we're just gonna hang out here for a second. I'll acknowledge this super chat and say thank you for the money, but this is retarded. You've been listening to too much James Lindsay. This is literally retarded. No one who listens to the left actually believes this. Stop listening to James Lindsay. Hinge into reality. Thank you for the money. That shit's retarded. They didn't kick me. I'm still in it. They don't know my name. There's no way they could kick me. I'm still literally in it, but I think they're fucking around with breakout rooms or something. Breakout rooms? Choose a room. Oh, I have to choose a room. I have to choose a room.
Thanks everyone for your patience.
We didn't miss anything. I chose mutual aid because I want to learn more about mutual aid. The Jewish one sounded great too, but can I switch?
We could really quick, just if people wanted to do put in the chat where your organization and where you're coming in from today, and if you're connected to any organizing around meeting material needs, mutual aid, ministerial work, anything like that, that would be really helpful to get a sense of who's in the room right now.
Actually, we're going to go to civil disobedience.
Gas tank where one could fuel themselves for the fight to go across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and then ultimately leading that march to Montgomery, and ways that faith communities can play a role and play a very visible role in nonviolent strategies. We've used Sunday demonstrations or encouraging communities to go to the polls on Sunday to vote, to also engage in direct action from the faith communities, or leading what they pray in that would take place at a congressional office with faith leaders engaging in prayer. And sort of and then leaving or refusing to leave, if you will, is what we was an action that we led in Tennessee after the expulsion of 2 of the Tennessee 3. And so there are multiple strategies to use your faith on the front line to engage in nonviolence and to engage in non-cooperation strategies. And so, Maria, I don't know how we want to. Is it more beneficial for our group if we entertain questions and dialogue, or to frame some sort of situations?
Yeah, well, thank you, Reverend Green, hearing from that like direct experience of what non-cooperation and nonviolence has looked like in practice is so helpful. And just would definitely love to hear from everyone in the room kind of your experience as well with non-cooperation at this moment, and just to say, what do we mean by non-cooperation? So this is like, with withholding or withdrawing social, political, economic support for systems of power. So it can look like labor strikes, walkouts, consumer boycotts, social boycotts. So there's a wide range of different forms of non-cooperation grounded very much in the history that Reverend Green mentioned during the civil rights movement up to including in the present of faith-based acts of non-cooperation. And, we've seen the target, the boycott targeting target for its anti-DEI, which was called for by Black faith leaders, began as a Lenten fast and kind of continued indefinitely. And we've seen kind of, the Tesla takedown, which was kind of a boycott targeting Tesla, which has plummeted stock. We've seen student and teacher walkouts. So there's a broad array of different forms of non-cooperation. And just to say, before we ask for kind of your impressions and experiences with non-cooperation, this tends to be the most powerful set of tactics in civil resistance because it involves directly taking power away from an adversary. You are directly taking away like financial power, labor, consumer, what by. So it's widely recognized as like the most powerful set of tactics available and indispensable to being able to effectively, challenge authoritarianism. So maybe Reverend Green, we can open it up to hear from folks' experience with kind of organized non-compliance, non-cooperation, what you're seeing, what you've been part of, what you wish could come about, and maybe, some of your direct experiences in that.
Sounds good. If you all want to use the raise hand feature, and then we can unmute you, or you can help us keep some order. Awesome. Start with you, Laurel.
Hi, I've had the opportunity to attend a couple of bystander trainings that have just been wonderful. And we've learned some different tactics on how to protect vulnerable populations who may be targeted, whether it's an individual or a group. But in that process, I heard of some wonderful stories, and maybe you folks have heard these too, but particularly I'm thinking of a town where the Ku Klux Klan was having a march, and there was nothing that anybody could do to stop them. It was their right to have this rally. But what the community did to counteract that was they turned it into like a walk-a-thon. And so for like every mile that the Klan, or whatever the Klan did, they would say, yay, we've raised more money for our opposite type of power, which I thought was just a wonderful way to counteract something like that.
Yeah, that's a great story, and I'll put an article link in the chat that talks about that example, which also happened in Germany against their version of neo-Nazi groups and across the country, and how communities have used creative means to confront white nationalist groups. So I'll put a link in the chat with some of those examples.
Awesome. Sister Jeannie?
Hi, I'm here more to learn. I'm with a women's Buddhist organization that's mostly online and Oakland based. So one of our questions is, how much of this can we communicate like in our emails if we want to do like boycotting an organization, or get together with like get out the vote campaigns? There's a bit of our not understanding exactly where, religious organizations can take a stand and where they can't. And the only thing I know is you can't like support a particular candidate, but is everything else on the table? This is great hearing these stories. I think there's a lot more we can do, but we were a little hesitant to use our website and our email communication and our meetings to communicate too much political activity because we weren't really sure. So I'm here to learn.
Sure. I'll just say this. Thank you. That's a phenomenal question. That you don't want to be too descriptive in your emails or notices as it relates to what you are intending to do. What we would also, it's important to make the distinction between lobbying and advocacy as well, so that we're not necessarily lobbying for a specific legislation or bill, but you're doing advocacy work regarding to that. Also, something that we use in some of the movements or actions that are led in Louisville, Kentucky after the death of Breonna Taylor was to provide a big location for a meeting or for a mass meeting or for a training session. And then from the training session, we would lead into a direct action. But everyone would know that they would arrive at a training. And then we would be able to ensure that everyone was committed to nonviolence, they knew the strategy and plan, and that we had that sort of meeting as the decoy, so we did not have or alert our opponent, if you will, on what we were trying to do. So those are some helpful hints and tools that I've had that I've experienced on my own.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Sort of one step removed.
Yes, I try to keep at least one step before. Even so, for example, we did a march on Juneteenth a year ago. We started at the MLK Memorial in Washington. We were going to end up at the White House, but we didn't tell folk where we're going to end. We just told them where we're going to be, and then that we would make sure they have transportation to get back from the final spot. So anything that can help in that regard to not really alert your opposition of what your overall strategy is. Great question.
Showing up as faith leaders and speaking as members of faith communities and not shying away from those identities and drawing on sacred scripture, whatever your tradition is, to defend protecting vulnerable people, resisting abuses of power. Like, I think there's huge power in showing up and being present as people of faith. And there are many ways to create spaces like pray-ins, teach-ins. Like, I'm thinking about all the ways to bring people together at a time when people are fearful, when, there are crackdowns on protests, there's Marines in the streets and National Guard, there's abductions happening. Like, how can faith leaders help create spaces through teach-ins, pray-ins, to be able to bring people in? I think there's a lot of power to that as well.
I hear, I'm looking in the chat as well to see that there's a need for more songs and music in addition to chants while we're out in the movement. And so I'll just share a song while we're here. I woke up this morning with my mind, and it was stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, and it was stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, and it was stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 And so we believe in the power of music to inspire, to lead, to really help control the emotions that are taking place out in the field as well. And so if there is music that you can remix or take from the civil rights movement, This Little Light of Mine, songs that continue to that allow others to join in and build harmony with each other, it really inspires the movement and keeps us focused on our goal. And so I wanted to just share that with you all as well. Phyllis.
Actually, I'm music director at our church and Unity of Bloomington, and we actually, along one of the Quaker groups in Bloomington community also, we've kind of combined on songs to sustain us. Right now it's once a quarter. I'm trying to get it to move to once a month. So, and basically it's songs that give us comfort, but yet I'm not the only one, but several of us are also putting songs of protest in there as well. So it's kind of bring people together for comfort, but also teach them that we need to do something too. So it's, pray but move your feet is one that we've used. I stand for the right. There are several people in our community who've written different songs, just chants and short things that we use. And we have a group of singers who are singing at all of the like the No Kings event and those type of events. It's a group of probably about 12 or 15 people who just go just to sing, not necessarily protest songs, but songs that lean in that direction.
I'm going to put a link in the chat. The Cairo Center has come out with a great little guide called Songs in the Key of Resistance.
Oh, excellent.
A whole lot of different songs from our history of nonviolent resistance in this country.
Cool.
Yes, that's phenomenal.
Other thoughts? Curious how folks are observing acts of non-cooperation, either in your communities, whether you have been part of or observed any particular boycotts or strikes, or what does that look like in your communities? Yeah, no.
Yeah, thanks. I'm based in San Diego, and actually I have not seen any, and my goal of getting on this breakout was to, one, try to see if there's some connections or how to find connections in our San Diego area. The energy here has been almost all protests, rallies. We have been accompanying people to immigration court. You can be there as an observer. No, not much room for non-compliance. That's more presence and just trying to support people. But that's my question, is how could people like me get connected, find others? And I'm in a faith community at church, and I don't know if others have this experience. About 100 people who are kind of split. I mean, about half of us would be, going for democracy. Probably 30-40% voted for Trump. And we're trying, that's a whole other thing we're trying to navigate. But so my whole faith community would not be in a position to make a move like this. But there's a segment of my faith community that would like to do this. We're trying to figure out who we can plug in with and how. Because I think we need to get some non-compliance going in San Diego. There's there's sort of a growing sense of, can we do things that are more concrete? That the protests are great, but they're a little more symbolic. And honestly, people are talking about feeling overwhelmed and running out of gas. My concern is people are just going to run out of gas before we get to do some practical stuff. So that's kind of what I'm fishing for.
So if I could ask you, Noel, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Thomas.
Sorry, I put my, yes, sir, I can.
You're in San Diego, which I'm surprised only 40% of your congregation is against it. I have family down there, and I can't talk to them. And is there any movement in trying to just bring the two sides together, or is it just intractable now?
Well, I don't want to get too sideways on this on our congregation. It's actually, I've been kind of amazed how we've tried to navigate and not vilify one another and keep some connections. And our church has actually been very open and supportive of us working with newcomers. Our area is inundated with newcomers from Syria, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. That's been true for years. So like, we're going to immigration court with our Afghan friends who are getting their removal notices, who are, they've done the legal asylum and the government's calling them in so that they can dismiss their cases. And when they walk out of the courtroom, they're arrested without warrant. So that's kind of a distinctive here. There's obviously the broader issues that we're all dealing with. And so once again, I guess in a sense, what I'm fishing for is how can call it the 60%, if you want to say that, who probably could not do this under the official umbrella of my local church, but would like to plug in with others in interfaith situation, and to coalesce and actually start saying, yeah, what can we plan and what can we do that would be active non-compliance? Because again, to the best of my limited knowledge, I simply have not seen that yet in this greater San Diego area.
No, I think that's a great point, and I'm going to offer a resource that's hopefully useful for everyone in this breakout in the chat. So just how do I get plugged into like people who are organizing campaigns of noncompliance? So the Freedom Trainers group that I'm a part of, others are part of, is offering trainings, virtual and in person, on organized noncompliance, what it looks like, where it's happening, how to strengthen these skills, and how to get plugged in. So I just put the link in the chat, and there's a virtual training happening on June 26th. You'll see it when you go to the website. So just to say, that's a way to get connected to very concrete things that are happening, including those being led by faith leaders. And I would also offer that, and I'm curious, like Stephen, Reverend Green, if you could like talk through kind of what the target boycott is like, because there's a website as well called boycottcentral.com, which kind of gives an update on the various like boycott campaigns that are happening. Another website that I think folks will find useful, TeslaTakedown.com, which goes into the new phase of kind of targeting Tesla. So TeslaTakedown.com. And other faith leaders have been preparing for a boycott targeting T-Mobile, because you may know that T-Mobile is supporting Starlink, so Musk's kind of Starlink. So there's a nascent campaign to target T-Mobile, others focused on Amazon. So there are concrete ways to go after enablers of repression in communities. There's also a whole community focused on ICE enablers. So the different like businesses that have contracts with ICE across the country. Some of you may have seen the map of these organizations. There's one campaign targeting Avelo Airlines. So Avelo, Avelo Airlines, which has a contract with ICE to run deportation flights. So communities in New Haven, Connecticut, and other places have organized a very targeted campaign against Avelo to get their local council to stop providing subsidies to Avelo. So these are just a few examples, but I think if you check out the training, and it'll be a way to get connected to different communities who are involved in the work.
So would that be a way also to try to get linked to like literally people in San Diego? Would they have links or ways that that's my question. How do we start to find people in our home area, to link up with, in addition to the trainings?
Yeah. No,
any ideas on that?
That's a great question. I think, so summits where they're organized groups. So for example, I know that indivisible groups have been very involved in some like counter ICE. They were very involved in Avelo. So maybe starting with the groups that you are already familiar with, faith-based. I mean, I don't know your faith tradition, but I'm thinking like the Catholic Church just, the new Pope just appointed in San Diego, Bishop Pham, who I believe is leading visitations or accompanying immigrants. So you have, all of a sudden an invigorated kind of Catholic community that's very kind of focused on what is happening. So that's not a great answer to your question. I think just starting though with the groups that are involved and are leading some of these campaigns is one way to at least start to get plugged in. But I'll see if there might be other resources to offer to answer that, Noel. But thanks. Stephen, I'm just curious because folks may not be as familiar with like the origins and how the Target fast came about, and like what that campaign is focused on now. Maybe you could shed some light on that part.
Sure. The Target fast began during the Lenten season on Ash Wednesday, leading up to a Resurrection Sunday or Easter Sunday, 40 days of sort of non-cooperation for faith communities to sort of withdraw from Target because of their DEI rollback. And so they actually have sustained that sort of movement since Easter, and the decline of foot traffic and the quarterly sales has continued to plummet of Target. And so it continues to this day. I think that we got to also branch out and see are there businesses that support GEO Group and some of these other large immigration deportation camps, if you will, see if there's some other ways we can encourage other targets. Or even think about how we can use Independence Day and 4th of July as a day to lead up to some form of non-cooperation or a national, stay-at-home day or sick out. We've seen this conversation of having folk encourage folks on their job to call out for sick days, or for students when they were in school to have walkouts. And so we really should, this is a long fight and a protracted struggle. And so, while we're working in our communities, it's important that we also are training our communities in nonviolence and non-cooperation strategies and building a plan of action. So you don't always have to just be in rapid response mode, but we can give ourselves a runway and think of how I, as an organizer, sometimes like to think of these things, to look at what are some of those high holy days in your local community? What are some of those special days that are taking place or in your community that you can encourage people to come together and have a form of demonstration or a non-cooperation action to take place. So that looks like, us in New York, 4th of July. Also, we know that there in Chicago, there's Lollapalooza, there's some other festivals. So how can you use these sort of events to really channel and to harness that energy and power?
Yeah. I see we only have a couple of minutes left, but Thomas, did you have, or maybe your hand is still up from the last time, I can't tell. Did you have?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. And Jeannie, same thing?
I'm sorry.
Okay, you're okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else with some thoughts, ideas, other resources to share with the group? Because that's in the small amount of time we have, just getting some resources out on the table can be one of the most helpful things we can do. Janice.
Yeah, now I'm in Los Angeles, and I know Loyola Marymount University, we've been doing prayer services downtown in LA because of all the stuff happening down there. So I'd have to find the resource because I'm not quite sure, because I get Facebook notifications and all kinds of things from them. So, that is another, at the university level, we're trying to address that as well. So, and it's local. I mean, it's pretty much local because they're in Westchester. So, but just another way to maybe touch base with your universities if you're, if they have religion programs.
Yeah. That's very helpful. Thank you, Janice. Any other thoughts, ideas, shares? Yeah, Jeannie?
Yeah, I just was going to say, we've done a lot of work on building resilience and having, morning sits, because people who are out protesting or supporting immigrants in the courts, they get really tired, they get really fatigued. And so if you're not one of those people that wants to or can go out, think of yourself as a support system for the people who can go out, and support your organization in ways that you can, even if it's remote or whatever. Just showing up and thanking people for their action can be very helpful. We need this whole community to support the actions that we are doing, because we get the people who, like us, that go out, we just get so exhausted and defeated. So our organizations are so important for that reason.
Yep. Reverend Green, anything?
I was
Any
going to say
final
this
thoughts?
is helpful. It's great to be in community with all of you tonight. One, this is inspiring and gives us some hope tonight that there's a legion of us who are committed to transforming our society. So grateful that you all decided to join us this evening from all over the world.
Thank you for speaking.
Thank you.
Oh, and thank you for someone who corrected the Boycott Central. I was not aware that their site is kind of defunct. So
our money to speak our values.
Hey, everyone.
Oh, we didn't get a warning.
We didn't get a warning.
Oh.
Oh, well.
Hi, everybody. I think you're coming back in. Do I have that right, team? The folks are coming back in the main room. I just want to say thank you. I really enjoyed my time with Tamara, and I know that we had a robust conversation. I'm sure that that all of you did. I wanted to just invite, before we close, for the leaders of each of the sessions, can you give, like, I know you could each go on and on, but one just word or visual that came out of the conversation that you thought the whole group might really enjoy, like just something that felt stirring or that you might send us forth. And I know that's a lot to ask, but I do think my guess is that there was something really good that you'd like to share with the whole group. Reverend Green?
Well, hope.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Who else from the speakers?
I think we saw real intention around connecting with people and meeting material needs and using that to build power. There was a real honesty and intention around that.
I think there was a really good question around how do we, bring up questions of immigration and immigration justice without it becoming quote unquote politicized. And then the reminder that we can go back to the text and we can go back to the words of our faith leaders. We can go back to stories as a way to talk about it without getting into space that makes people maybe feel uncomfortable or turn away or disengaged.
Person in my group who was speaking at the end prompted me to think really like this is about the long game, right? Our faith communities really inspire us to our faith traditions rather inspire us to have the long-term vision, right? And not sort of get focused on the despair of the moment, but as Reverend Green said, sort of the hope, right, for the long game. And so I think recognizing in our struggles here, we are playing this long game as well.
We had a lot of determination in our group. I think recognizing the challenges that come with the bridge building work, but a real desire to get to it and figure out how to work through the discomfort.
Well, Reverend Green gifted our group with the power of music and the necessity of music and song in nonviolent resistance. And then folks were really eager to learn more about practical ways to get involved in non-cooperation. What are the promising campaigns? Where they're happening? How do we get trained up in non-compliance and non-cooperation? So that was some of the great stuff coming out of our group.
Anything else? Reverend Date, anything from your group, or not to put you on the spot, but I really
Yeah, thanks for asking it. I think part of there were some questions. One of the comments was the fact that faith and politics have become so enmeshed that we can no longer extricate those two identities, and that becomes problematic. And then there was some question and discussion around, like, how do we share our sacred text with each other without it lording it over each other, but doing a kind of sharing where we're learning from one another and being curious about that.
Thank you. Well, I just want to close by inviting my colleague Guthrie to put a link in the chat for everyone. We are like, no one's going to save us but us, and Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, and I think this is a broader sentiment right now, is that nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. And our goal today, bringing all of us together, was that recognition that every single person on this call has an opportunity to do something. And the link that was just put in the chat does give some very tangible guidelines to how to actualize what the toolkit offers and make it your own. I mean, I hope you didn't hear tonight that there's like one way to do this right, because everyone on this call and all the experts, and they are wonderful experts who have really been, but all of us are trying to do the best we can. And nobody has this perfect, but all of us, if we try, we can do something together. And I just love the words, the hope, the curiosity, the stories, the invitation, the opportunity that was shared tonight by our leaders. And so I hope that you will all take that to heart, because the most important thing that we wanted to come out of this is that you felt like permission granted. Go out, do something, find your path. You do not have to be a faith leader to do this work, by the way. This is not reserved for anybody who's clergy or any sort of particular status. This is for all of us to come forward with whatever deeply motivates us and find our voice, find our people, and show up together. My commitment to you from Interfaith Alliance, and I think I'm joined by all of the leadership that got together to do this tonight, is that we will be continuing to reach out, continuing to make the invitation, and also continuing to offer trainings, because I think that's really important. Again, no one is born knowing how to do non-cooperative, resistance, whatever, no one is born knowing how to do all of this, but all of us have the capacity to do it. The other thing I'll leave you with is that this is a moment for courage for all of us, for our nation. And the root word of courage is heart, is love. And this is about loving our communities, loving our neighbors, and even loving our country in a deep enough sense that we recognize the threat of authoritarianism that is really imminent in our country. And now is the time for each of us to find our courage in whatever way we exercise courage and show up with love in this moment. So with that said, I want to thank all of the panelists. I want to thank so much Chris and Ella and Protect Democracy for creating this great resource. Maria, for all that you do for all of us and for this incredible panel. Each of you has enriched us, and especially for each one of you who has participated tonight. And really, your presence matters. And so thank you all, and I hope you have a great night.
Okay, we're out. I have a couple things to say, and then we're gonna go to movie night. And as a reminder, we are watching a movie in the supporter Discord tonight. We are watching Escape from LA. And so if you are a supporter over on my Substack, you should already be in the supporter Discord. But if you are not in the supporter Discord, I will be sending out a chat with the link basically as soon as I wrap the stream. So it'll be right at the top of your inbox. If you are a supporter in locals, you'll be able to join us then as well. So head over to the Substack. That is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And where you'll be able to find the link is in the chat section. So just click on that, whether you're in the app or whether you're on their browser. And I will be posting the link to the Discord there expeditiously. And we're going to go watch Escape from LA in a minute. I just want to address a couple of things though. First off, I want to speak to Deborah. And listen, Deborah, I don't recognize you from around the channel. And so I'm not trying to make you feel bad. But I want to say, so Deborah says it was the dullest talk and he's so excited about it. Deborah, here's the thing. Organizing is not entertainment. This is the difference between the left and the right. The left views this as a job, which is ironic considering the right runs around all the time saying they don't have jobs. Well, guess what? The left views organizing as the job. That's part of what they do every single day. And so for them, it doesn't have to be entertaining. It's not supposed to be entertaining. It's supposed to be productive. The reason the left is so much more successful at this is because they take it seriously and they don't just look for, something that's going to entertain them for a couple hours. That's why they call it the work, the struggle. It is the job. Okay. And so the fact of the matter is the right doesn't do any of this at all. We are literally losing to retards and boomers and old hippies, Not because what they're doing is necessarily great, but it's because they're doing something. They're doing something. Even if that thing is imperfect, even if that thing is boring, even if that thing is cringe, it doesn't matter. You want to know why it doesn't matter? Because the right is doing nothing. And so it doesn't matter if you have the best ideas, and I'm not even convinced the right does have the best ideas, but let's just say they did for argument's sake. You're doing nothing. You're not organizing. You're not having classes like this. You're not having meetings like this. All you're doing is whining and complaining on Twitter about how, and complaining that the left's tactics are boring. That's like all you're doing. And again, I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but like the left is doing something very imperfectly, and that is better than nothing that's going on the right. And that is why the left will win. It is really that simple. Victory comes to those who show up. It's not necessarily for the people with the best ideas, because if the best ideas don't show up and they don't do anything, then what do you want? What do you want? We did get a super, I acknowledged a super chat earlier. We did end up banning that guy then because he kept disrupting the chat. So again, thank you for the money. Appreciated that. Anyway, guys, we're going to wrap it now. We're going to go watch Escape from LA in the supporter Discord. I will be sending out a Discord link to the chat on the Substack in a couple of moments if you are not yet in the Discord. And I know Mac B will be generous. He usually plays some songs before we get started with the movie, so there is still plenty of time. I want to thank everyone who came out for Spy Stream. If you want to support the work I'm doing, head over to the Substack. That is Karlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. Sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I will be back tomorrow. And we'll do something. I don't know what we're going to do, but it'll make itself clear. All right, guys, have a good one. We'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you here?
That's difficult to answer.
trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for the people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.